Emmanuel Macron's government looking to survive a vote of no confidence triggered by last Thursday's decision to override Parliament on the day it was either to approve or reject an unpopular pension reform bill. Let's dip in and listen to the French Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne.
A challenge that we're embarking on a pensions reform. Of course, the situation is known. The increased deficit and the demographics, they're not arguments of authority, and no one imagines that the sole reality of the figures will diminish the impact of the reform for those who will gradually have to work longer. But we need to be clear about the alternatives. Some were presented by amendments in this assembly. They can be summarized in two words: fiscal hammer blows. These are taxes and additional expenses that will weigh on the cost of living of French people and threaten their jobs. The other path that some are proposing is to extend the duration of contributions. But the French people must know the truth. To balance our pay-as-you-go pension systems, we would have to work 45 years. In transparency, those who propose it should assume the consequences of such a measure. For the holder of a BTS degree who started work at the age of 20, that would mean a pension at 65. As a responsibility upon us, we didn't opt for the 45 years working life. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, to devise this reform with the employment minister, we carefully reviewed all the proposals and amended our own. The months of consultation with the unions and employer representatives allowed us to make significant breakthroughs on the text, such as including hardship, long careers or incomplete careers, notably of women. At the risk of surprising the extremes here, debate and consultation are useful. I'd also like to hail the work undertaken for months by the MPs of the three groups of the parliamentary majority, Renaissance, Modem and Horizon. Faced with the pensions challenge, you made significant, novel proposals, many of which are included in the final bid. In the face of the noise and insults, you never swayed from the course, and you demonstrated the face of democratic dignity. You did not allow yourselves to be intimidated. You thought of the general interest, preserving our social model more than your own personal destiny. It's not your votes that were in default. And if I turn to Article 49.3 of the Constitution, it wasn't because of the majority that rallied. Months of consultation before the bill, the proposals of the majority and the opposition, and the 175 hours at the debate at Parliament led to a balanced reform, progressive and better taking into account individual situations. Today, it is on your text, not on the government bill, but on the compromise found by Parliament, that I engage my responsibility. To reject this compromise would be to finance our pension through debt and dangerously weaken our pay-as-you-go system. To reject this compromise would to deprive 1.8 million modest pensioners of an increase in their pension, an increase of some 600 euros per year on average. To reject this compromise would be to deprive the liberal professions of a pension increased by 10% upon their third child. I'm thinking notably of liberal nurses to reject this compromise would be to continue to ask those who started working before the age of 16 to continue to work for 45 years before receiving a full pension. To reject this compromise would mean abandoning investing 1 billion euros to prevent the hardship of those who have to carry heavy weights or perform repetitive tasks. To reject this would be to abandon measures that would reduce by a third pension gaps between men and women. I'd like to commend all the MPs who heard the call of the French people for the joint effort and, beyond the divide, took part with the government and the majority in building and improving this pensions reform bill. Ladies and gentlemen, this debate on pensions raises broader questions about the changes in our attitude to work, equal opportunities, and the prospects that we can offer individuals. With my government, I'd like to address these challenges, foil social determinism, offer genuine professional careers, and improve quality at work. Faced with these challenges, I remain convinced there's only one method: to seek compromise and never abandon action. In the coming weeks and months, new texts will be discussed at Parliament. It's never too late to enter the posturing, but when I see a motion of non-confidence signed by the whole left with as a figurehead a proponent of a retirement at 64 as presented by MP de Courson, your amendment in 2013. A proponent of budgetary austerity against the marriage for all, and who didn't vote the abolition of the death penalty in the Constitution. So, I note the NUPES has lost all its bearings when it's prepared to compromise with everyone seeking to block the situation. Rather than to build Baroque alliances, let's think of the interest of our country. Rather than forming blocs against, let's forge majorities in favor. Ladies and gentlemen, MPs, in the coming days, weeks and months, to answer the questions of the French people, we will also have to begin a new page in our social democracy. I'm convinced that social dialogue must become the norm, must precede every bill. I'm convinced that on many issues, the right method is to transcribe in law the agreements found with the social partners. And it's, in fact, with the majority what we will propose to do soon on value sharing. Ladies and gentlemen, MPs, with this reform, we have never gone so far in forging a compromise. The government has assumed its full responsibility, and the individual adventures, tactical positioning, and the fear of unpopularity didn't lead to a majority. However, parliamentary democracy will have the final word, as it should. It contributed to forging this text, to improve it, enrich it through proposals from the National Assembly as well as the Senate, proposals of the majority as well as the opposition. It's parliamentary democracy that allowed this text to be adopted twice in the Senate and during a joint committee session when the government was not present. Lastly, it's parliamentary democracy that will express itself through your vote. Article 49.3 of our Constitution that allows the government to engage its responsibility and Parliament to censure it has a specific history to guarantee the Parliament that it doesn't fall into powerlessness, as was the case under the Third and then the Fourth Republics. Those who disguise the 49.3 in an anti-democratic tool have a short memory. They forget that it is the weakening of Parliament and the inability to legislate in crisis situations that led someone to challenge parliamentary democracy or even democracy in the darkest periods of our history.
Listening to remarks there from the French Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne just ahead of a vote, up or down, a vote of confidence in the government. This vote of confidence triggered by the use, and you heard her allude to it just there, of Article 49.3 of the Constitution, which allows the president to make passage of his unpopular pension reform bill, turning it into instead a vote of confidence for the government.